Howdy, everybody. Hi, National University Research Writing course. I'm Rex Thompson. I've been your instructor the last couple of weeks. And now I'm going to talk a little bit. I hope you choose to listen because it's going to be some cool information that you'll need. It's going to help you on your draft, which is due this week. That's the big takeaway. And I'll talk about the final paper also. Pertains to that also. Both these conversations are about essentially the paper. Keep up on the assignments, keep up on the discussions. It's really important to keep the discussion flowing. If it says reply to two classmates, please do, and don't make them just short one sentence replies because that's not really discussing anything. Discuss whatever the discussion is. That helps. It helps you and it helps them. Helps everybody. Okay. Today, this week is your rough draft is due. And I'm going to post stuff on announcements. This will be on announcements. But it will help if you listen to the lecture. Your rough draft is exactly that. It's a rough draft. It's not a finished product. You don't even have to have a finished paper. I just need a couple pages to see where you are in the process, to see if it's looking like it should, that you're using APA format. And if you haven't done APA yet, you probably need to Google a format. But in brief, the format is 1-inch margins all the way around the page, 12 font, New Times Roman font, double space everything. There's a running header on each page that will have a written title and a page number on every page. If you have a title page, it really shouldn't be there. It's okay if it is, because I know sometimes it's hard to start the running header on page 2. There's a trick to that, but I won't punish you if you have a running header on the title page. On the title page, you should have obviously your name, but sometimes it's not that obvious. I get a lot of students who don't put their names on their papers. Put your name, the title of this course, and the title of your paper, and the date. Simple as that. Then we go down to page 1, and you should have an opening thesis. And that in that thesis, which is the first paragraph, usually the first 1 or 2 paragraphs, this is a short paper. If you do longer papers in your future classes, you can have a longer thesis, but you don't need it for this one. In that opening thesis, you should clearly state your topic question. Don't just leave it up to your title to let the reader know what you're writing about, because a lot of times your title doesn't indicate what the question is. When I say a shortened title in the running header, if you have a long title, that's not going to look good in the running header. It's going to look cluttered, and you're trying to make your paper look like a proper academic research paper. And this is across the board for all classes, from now until you go through grad school or go further. I hope you do. That's why this course comes in handy. So you remember last week we had an assignment where you were supposed to make a chart with the topic question with keywords highlighted, and then columns of researched words that you could use to, in your research. Well, the reason why we're doing the highlighting is because You just can't put out full sentences out there into the internet and try to and expect to get the correct results. So you want to make sure you're highlighting the key words that are going to get you the results you need for your research. So that's all that needs to be in the running header. It doesn't have to be the entire title unless you have a short title, and that's fine. Okay, enough about the titles. So after stating your thesis clearly and concisely in the opening paragraph or two, you start the body of the paper. Do not, in that first paragraph or so, don't clutter it up with a bunch of quotes or stats. It confuses the reader. Make a statement on your own. Synthesize your ideas and the material that you've researched and put your own words up there. I want to see your words, thoughts, and analysis. I don't want to read a bunch of quoted material. That's where the creativity comes in writing these papers. Remember, you're writing for an audience, which right now is me, but now that's not so true. You're also writing for your fellow classmates because you're going to post this for them to look at. So I'm not the only one reading the draft. I'll be probably the only one reading your full paper, but not the draft. So make it clear and concise for everyone. And you're going to post that, and you're going to comment on others. You're going to probably comment on 2 others. Make your comments useful criticism, constructive criticism, just the kind of criticism you hope you get in return. I will be making my own comments. Read it all. Pay attention to all of it. It helps when you see what your peers are doing, so you won't feel so left alone. And then we're all out here in this virtual reality, and sometimes we feel alone. I'm talking in a room right now with a sleeping cat over there. That's how we roll now, especially here at National, but since the pandemic for sure. So, have multiple sources. Don't just have one source. On the rough draft, I'm not going to be bothered if you have only one source. And the final paper, I will be. You want to have multiple sources, 3 or 4. That'd be great. Because you don't want, if you have one source that you constantly go to as your expert source on the topic, whatever your topic is, say it's, I don't know, what's your topic? Medical, should we have electronic medical records? Oh, well, so make sure you have some diverse sources, not just one source or 2 sources that are saying the same thing, agreeing with their one-sided. It slants the paper. Have an opposing source or 2, and so that the reader gets a balance. You're not presenting an argument here. You're not taking a side. You're presenting a fair and balance based on the research. Let the reader decide how they feel about it after what you've presented in a fair and balanced way. How to do that is have multiple sources that aren't just coming from the same area of expertise. Please use the National Library. It's actually quicker to call them. Tell them your topic. Tell them you're looking at peer-reviewed. Like to get some peer-reviewed articles. They will steer you in the right direction. This is what they do. Try not to Google everything or Wikipedia everything. Use academic research site. They're cited in the assignments like ProQuest and others. And that helps narrow your results down. If you Google your question out there in the greater web, you're going to get millions of results back, and you're not going to be able to sift through it all. This paper is only 3 pages or 4 or less. It's a short paper. You want fewer results, not more. And so these academic research sites like ProQuest and the others are designed to get you fewer results. And if you do the peer-reviewed results, you'll get even fewer yet. Do all your sources need to be peer-reviewed? No, they don't. It's just a way to have reliable sources. When you're quoting a source, make sure you have an author. A lot of sites don't list an author. That gets a little sketchy. Now, if the source is reliable and there's no author, that's probably okay. But why is there no author listed? That's what you got to question. You want to make your sources as reliable as possible. So the reader, if they want to, they could Google your author, or your source, and see the reliability of what you've provided. They're going to trust you on that one. Don't betray their trust. They're going to rely on you to make sure you're using reliable sources. So if you could give some information about the author, just a brief description of where they work, why they're experts, who they are, and it has to go beyond more than, say, writing they're a writer, or they're a teacher, or they're a PhD. That doesn't describe anything. A teacher in what? A PhD, what is a PhD in? They're a writer, okay. What does that mean? Anybody who's writes on a journal every day is a writer. So if you could give there some credentials, and I know this is not easy, and you probably won't be able to do it on all of them, but do it if you can. Give their credentials, what college, say you're quoting from an expert source from a university, make sure you say where they work, how long they've been there, what other journals they write for, something to give the reader an indication that they are reliable. If they work for the New York Times or Time Magazine, Newsweek Magazine, Rolling Stone Magazine, whatever, that helps. If they're bloggers, you better find some reason why they're experts, because anybody could be a blogger, anybody. So try to stay clear of bloggers unless you can prove that they're reliable. Makes it a little harder. Stay clear of Wikipedia. You're going to see an assignment, I think it's this week, could be next week, where Wikipedia has been breached, you might say, several times with fake information. It's getting better. Wikipedia is a lot better than it used to be. But we'd rather have you steer clear of it in this research paper and don't quote from it. You'll lose points if you do. And it could be reliable, but just stay clear of it for this paper. Other classes, I'm sure, have told you the same thing. You don't want to use the word I in the research paper. I believe that technical records shouldn't be electronic only. Well, that slants the paper into an opinion piece. We're trying to write a paper that's not an opinion-based paper. It's not an editorial. It's not your personal opinion. Now, all the topics that are out there can be passionate, and they could be hot button topics like abortion rights or women's rights or Black Lives Matter, whatever it is. Try to keep your personal opinion out of it. If I see the word I, you will lose points. If you have a story to tell, it's okay to tell a story if you put it in the third person. There's a creative way to do it. there's a way to tell a story without making it your personal viewpoint story. That immediately null and voids the reliability of the paper. To just simply stay clear of the word I. And sometimes it's not easy to do. You want to conclude by going, in my opinion, I believe, well, then you've biased the whole paper into an opinion piece and you will lose points for that. So just stay clear of it. Because this is APA, you want to use references. You'll have a references page. It's a standalone page with your citations. And MLA uses works cited. I don't want to see works cited unless you're a humanities major. You have to tell me that it's okay to use MLA, but you have to tell me you're going to be using MLA, because if I don't get that notice from you, and you know how to text me, you know how to email me, and assume that you don't know how to do APA, and you will lose points for that. APA is the standard for this division in this course, and for so many of the courses at National. So all you have to do is let me know. Don't overwhelm your paper with stats. Whatever your topic is, if it is overwhelmed with stats, the reader is stopped dead in his or her tracks, and it's not a good read. You want to make your paper readable. You want people to go to the next page. They're interested in what's happening. What's going to happen next? You're telling a story. That's where the creativity comes in. This class has a creative writing aspect to it. You have a voice. Yes, you do. And it's okay to bring out that voice even in these research papers. And you could do it without using the word I. You could be clever, you could be witty, you could be humorous or serious, whatever. You can make the reader engaged. You're trying to engage the reader with your words. It is a craft. You craft these papers all through your college career. As I went up the ladder, got more degrees. Like, for example, when I got my master's degree, my paper had to be 100 pages. Think about that, folks. And they gave you 6 months to write it, by the way. I have 25 reliable sources. And I kept submitting it to the faculty member, and they kept rejecting it. Do better. Change this, change that. It drove me crazy. Then you finally get it through it, and you never want to write another one. Now I'm teaching it. So this little paper is just a stepping stone into many great papers you're going to write. Not just in your college career, but in your careers in general. You're going to have to do research out there, whatever your career goals are. Military, medical, technical, entertainment. You're going to have know-how, how to do research, how to find reliable sources to make a pitch, make a career paper they might have to write for a client. It's going to come in really handy. You're going to draw a conclusion at the very end. This is the last paragraph. You're not answering the question. You're not saying, well, due to the overwhelming results that I've provided for you, it's obvious that electronic medical records are the best thing we've ever had. That's an answer. And the reason why we're not having you answer the question that you're proposing is because the technology changes, and you know how quick it changes. Just look how many cell phones, iPhone, they come up with every 6 months. There's a new iPhone. The technology changes. And so what is relevant right now in a month won't be, because it changes. New research, new answers, new things are coming up to the surface. So also, when you're looking at sources, try to make them as current as you possibly can. A lot of times I get a lot of sources that are from the early 2000s. That's a long time ago in the world we're living in right now. You will lose points on that. I'll say I need some current sources. 2010 is not current. It's almost 12 years old. You know how fast the technology changes. So please try to find current sources, last 3 or 4 years. The more current they are, the more reliable the paper. Visuals are okay. We don't have an exercise, we used to. We don't have an exercise where you had to learn how to um, upload a graph or chart or photo. We have some exercises where we do screenshots, sort of like when, if you want to do a visual, that's okay. If you do, say, a graph or a chart, that's all right. Make sure it's relatively easy to understand. If it's complicated with too much in it, it's going to stop the reader in their tracks, and you're going to fail at it. If you put a visual, chart, graph, photo, that's all fine. Make sure you give credit where credit's due. Cite it. You got it somewhere, unless you made it up yourself, and that's okay too. That just requires a lot of extra work. But and explain it, even if you don't think it needs explaining. What this graph shows is this. 2 sentences. Explain what the graph is showing. Don't let the reader try to figure it out themselves. It's up to you to guide them along. You're explaining everything in detail. Don't assume the reader knows what you do. They don't. You know it because you're doing the research on it. Another thing to avoid is making blanket generalized statements that you cannot possibly back up, such as, most people know that texting while driving is a bad thing. Well, do you know most people? I don't. I know about 2 people. I can't say what most people do or what they know. It's a generalized statement that cannot be backed up with facts. Don't use it. A lot of people use that. Stay clear of trying to tell what you think everybody's thinking. You don't know unless you could prove it. And you'll have to prove it by an expert source backing that up. Expert sources from Harvard University say people who write LOL on their texts are avoiding reality. But I got to see some extra sources that prove that. I know they are, and you probably know they are, but we can't just say it as a general statement. It's a no-no. We're trying to make these papers as factually based on facts as we possibly can. That's why you need the expert sources. Give credit where credit's due. It's not as easy as you think. Nobody starts out to plagiarize. If you plagiarize, you'll get an F on the paper. I actually have authorization to give an F in the course if I think you've plagiarized. I never had to do that yet. I've taught this course since 2006. But I've given some Fs on papers when there's an obvious plagiarized section. I have a way to look that up, but I can usually spot it. I trust you to write an honest paper. So write an honest paper. I'd rather see an honest paper that is not perfect than a slicked out, dishonest paper that possibly has been copied off other sources, copied and pasted. What's the point of that? It's cheating yourself. Simple as that. Don't plagiarize. It leads to a disastrous future. And sometimes you're plagiarizing and you don't know it. Look at politicians. They're always copying some speech from somebody else and they forgot that they did it. That's their excuse. Don't you be as naive as them. Once again, I want you guys to be very constructive in your criticism on your fellow peers. Give them some constructive criticism because they could use it. Don't be hurtful in any way. Don't be negative in any way. What's the point of that? We all need help. We're all in this together, believe it or not. Even me. And I'm learning a lot from you. I learn a lot from your writing, your papers, your point of view. And that's all I have to say. Welcome to week 3. So far, so good. Now let's rock this thing and make some really wonderful papers. You could do it. Write strong, write honest, write the truth.